A very good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen, race fans from around the world, wherever you're joining us from this evening. Welcome back to round 9 tonight, season 4 of the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars series. And we find ourselves at none other than the high-speed battleground that is the Daytona race, of course. Welcome to Daytona International Speedway. And with just one round remaining after this one, the championship stakes are sky high, and this could be the turning point. We've got plenty to talk about in terms of championship standings now that all the drop rounds have been calculated. But first, of course, tonight we take a look at the format, and a massive hello to everyone out there watching this evening with me. My name is Jared Cole, and I'm joined in the Simple Racing Broadcast commentary booth by none other than Josh Harris. Josh, welcome back for round 9. We're getting to the very, very pointy end of this championship. It seems like it has been a very long season with a whole lot of drama throughout, but we're almost there. We're almost crowning a champion for season 4, would you believe?
I absolutely would believe, Jared. It's been a long season, but a mighty good one. Thank you very much for having me along again, and welcome to all of our viewers as well. What a fantastic track! Something a little bit different for us, coming from a couple of very different tracks to this, Jared. Between the tight and twisty Winton to the undulating Mosport, there's probably no further that you could go than coming to Daytona, where it is absolutely dead flat and incredibly high speed, where we use the vast majority of the Daytona Super Speedway. Just a couple of turns thrown in at the start, and then a sneaky bus stop at the end to make sure that the cars are resting speed. But some very exciting racing coming tonight, and just quietly between you and me, the absolute #1 strategy for this race, Jared, is don't find yourself all alone on track.
Absolutely. You and I have a little bit of history in the Gen3 Supercars around an oval. We participated actually only, last week before? I'm starting to lose track of time already this year. But we were putting the Gen3s through their paces around an oval, and the minute you fall out of that slipstream, it is game over. So yes, absolutely, the strategy tonight will be to bury your nose behind the rear bar of the car in front and hang on for dear life as you make your way around the tight and high banking of Daytona International Speedway. The infield, of course, taking part here tonight. We are on the road course, so a total of 5.69 kilometres of track for these cars to make their way around. A 10-lap sprint opens us off tonight, and then race 2, 24 laps here of the road course. A reverse top 5 coming from the result of race 1. 2 compulsory pit stops to be seen in race 2 again this week, with the 50% fuel limit once more. The weather conditions could not be more perfect here in Daytona Beach, so nothing to worry about there, but certainly the challenge will be staying with the pack and not to take anything away from the start line challenge. Josh, tell us a little bit about the practice session that you've just put in and what these guys can expect off the line.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Jared, I am very, very surprised that the team here at ASR have chosen to continue with their standing starts. Standing starts on banking do prove to be incredibly problematic. So I did check that they were still standing starts. From everything that you and I can see, they absolutely are. So I jumped out on track and attempted a couple myself. And I guess, Jared, what I can tell you is that the moment that you get any wheel spin at all, the car will turn hard right and you will be in the wall before you can say, dear oh dearie me. So I wouldn't be surprised to see carnage off the start line, to be honest. Like I said, I'm pretty surprised that we're doing a standing start. Hopefully the guys have all practiced and we get away cleanly, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of first lap safety cars and maybe a little bit of if we do come back to Daytona with ASR, maybe a little bit of a change in tune and over to a rolling start. But time will tell. Maybe I'm entirely wrong, and I just needed to do a bit more practice to get these things gripped up and moving away.
That could well be it. You never know. We'll have to wait and see. The start not too far away. Lone qualifying going on as we bring this all to you this evening. So the drivers putting in their couple of laps to find their starting positions for race number 1. Before we do get underway here this evening, let's take a look at the championship standings and what a story it is this week. And something that will probably jump out to anyone who's been keeping track of this Now the drop rounds have been calculated, Wayne Walker finds himself in an almost unassailable position at the top of the standings, and his season has been just relentless pace and precision, very, very consistent results, and that's put him on the verge of securing the title, where just last week we didn't think he was in with a shot. But Josh, it's been a real change of the guard at the top end, and all of a sudden Van der Kraan and Dijk, who have probably been trying to calculate what they need from these last two rounds, will find themselves contemplating whether or not they even have a shot left at the number one spot for the rest of this season. The key, I think we've more or less established, has been the fact that Wayne's two drop rounds were very, very early in the season, race 2 and 3, if memory serves, whereas Van der Kraan and Dijk really just had a bit more spread between theirs, both of them dropping last round as one of their lowest scoring. And that has brought Wayne not just back into the fight, but put him well out in front. So unless there's an incorrect calculation there somewhere, the championship as it stands right now, Van der Kraan and Dijk, although they're still in it with a shot, they're going to need to pull out something really, really special, both here at Daytona and next week in the finale, to keep the fight alive.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, Jared, that you mentioned there is that calculation of drop rounds. Wayne actually missed a round, so where everyone else was counting some points every week, obviously there was a week where Wayne got literally none. So big change, and it's going to be interesting to see how things play out the next couple of weeks.
It absolutely will be. We are about to go racing, so let's go and take a look at the grid here for race 1. As we try and figure out what on earth has happened to our championship board and why it doesn't want to leave the screen. Give us just a moment, folks, to get that fixed up for you, and we will take a look at the grid here for race number 1. Qualifying is done and dusted. The cars starting to make their way onto the front stretch and ready to go racing. The grid here for race 1 at Daytona: Scott Gamble and Wayne Walker on the front row ahead of Dean Logsdale and Michael Stewart. Then Poynton and Dijk on row 3 ahead of Varga and Damon Fisher. Jim Caperonis and Andrew Hoffman rounding out the 10 with Damien Cairns and Brian Minogue nipping at their heels. Further back, Alex Kiedis and John Latham find themselves ahead of Scott McEwen and James Hardy. Then Dylan Sipple and Mick Clifton line up alongside each other before Simon Farrington and Peter Latham take row 10. Rick Varga and Michael Power in 21st and 22nd respectively ahead of Troy Sipple and Andrew Johnston. Further back through the field, Todd Martin and David Logsdale, the last of the contenders this evening. Tim Nicol and Tim Lawson, your safety car drivers for this evening. And it's a bit of a smaller field this week than we have had. I think, you get to these last couple of rounds and some of the drivers who perhaps haven't had a chance to have a bit of a break and take a week off, perhaps find themselves out of championship contention and maybe decide to sit and just watch this one from home for the week. I don't know. Simon Haynes joins us in the chat. Maybe he can give us some insight after his showing last week being a pretty decent one. Not out on track tonight, Simon. So we hope you enjoy the coverage.
Yeah, it's always something that happens at this time of the year, and for the guys who race these things week in, week out, Daytona may not be a track that they're used to, and it could absolutely be something that they've just decided, hey, look, I don't really know this track, I haven't raced it much before. Good week to have a week off. This week is still, in theory, eligible for the drop round if my understanding of the rules are correct. So, maybe people just taking the opportunity to use up a drop round at the back end of the season.
Yeah, entirely possible. It'll be so interesting to see where the championship standings lie after this week. I don't know what to make of what we've seen in the ladder this week, Josh. It's thrown me for a bit of a loop, I'll be honest, because we've been focusing so much on Van der Kraan and Dijk, and we just weren't keeping our eyes on those two early rounds for Wayne Walker, and it's turned it upside down, hasn't it?
It has, but it's made it mighty interesting. If I remember back to last week, I have a feeling that Wayne Walker's never raced here before, so he's done really well to put it on the outside of the front row, and it's going to be interesting to see how he gets it moving as we do start this race.
Absolutely. As we go to starters orders, the revs come up, the lights are out, and everyone underway reasonably comfortable. Oh, a big moment there for Poynton as he gets a bit loose, and that looked like one of the Southern Cross Racing cars hugging the wall to get underway as well. But we are off for lap 1 here of our 10-lap sprint at Daytona. and certainly not quite the carnage we're expecting, which is good to see, but a much slower start than we would characteristically see from these cars. That said, Scott Gamble is absolutely going for it out in front, starting to open up a little bit of a gap already behind him. Wayne Walker, Mark Point, and Dean Logsdale all in the mix. We make our way through the first of the horseshoes here at the Daytona infield and down through the dogleg. The pack's starting to get themselves settled into their rhythm already. They want to make sure that they are well set to be in the slipstream when they do come onto the oval for the first time. As everyone starts to space out, a very, very tidy run of cars through the second horseshoe. And here we go. We're about to hit the oval. A big moment there. That's Scott McCune that's been spun around in the infield. We'll have to go back and have a look at that in a moment. The big news out in front, though, Scott Gamble finds himself with just a little bit of space to breathe. That's very, very quickly going to be pulled back in, though, as these cars do make their way around the oval and start to take advantage of what little slipstream these Gen 3 supercars can offer.
One thing that we discovered the other week, Jared, is that these cars actually do bump draft quite well. So it will be interesting to see whether anyone forms up little packs and whether anyone's done just enough practice to make sure that they know how to bump draft around the corners and whatnot. As we see the cars for the very first time tonight come through the bus stop. Very difficult corner in these Gen 3 cars that don't like turning at the best of times, let alone changing in direction. And so, you know, just it's going to be interesting to see how the guys go tonight. Very, very easy to pick up a slowdown through the bus stop. And of course, if you pick up a slowdown as you enter into this super speedway, Jared, I'm sure everyone will be pretty understanding of the fact that that is going to lead to a lot of lost time on the leaders needing to get up high on the banking and slow down and let everyone past.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be interesting to see. I don't know that many of these drivers will have had all that much experience or time with bump drafting. You see Caperonis tries to put a big move on, makes contact with Damien Cairns there and gets all out of shape, almost takes Brian Minogue out as well, and in the end loses a few spots for his troubles. Dylan Sippel battling hard to get past on the inside, but Caperonis re-establishes himself and starts to push, losing 3 spots down to 12. Big contact there from Sippel and Caperonis. Caperonis, can he recover, or is he going to find himself in traffic? A huge pile-up starting to form here. Caperonis dead stopped in the middle of this horseshoe and spun around right next to him. That looks like Mick Clifton for Accelerate. Perhaps it may have found himself facing backwards there. Not at all what any of those drivers would have been hoping for. Look towards the front of the field, and Logsdale and Poynton just looking up the track. A bit of separation here to Walker and to Scott Gamble out in front as they make their way into the Le Mans chicane, apparently. Josh, I don't know why we can't just call it a bus stop, because it absolutely is a bus stop. So we're gonna roll with that for this evening. But
I have never heard a single driver refer to that as the Le Mans chicane, and I certainly won't be starting there.
No, it's not the night for it. It really isn't. Interesting to see the amount of space being left here, and this is where you really can tell the difference between people who are driving ovals week in, week out, and these Gen 3 supercar drivers. It's not a familiar space for them, is it? The idea of bump drafting and staying very, very tight as a pack. But if they can figure that out here tonight, it's going to make a huge difference to their ability to get ahead of the rest of the field.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And even things like the side draft, Jared, when you're out on the oval part of the track, we noticed just before, as we do see Hardy here putting a move on Cairns by the look of it. Or actually, that was the other way around, I do believe. My apologies. But the side drafting these supercars is actually surprisingly good, Jared. And if you can be brave enough to tuck right up beside the car that you're racing, you will get a benefit from it. But pretty scary when you are hurtling around a corner at quite a significant speed to then also get yourself basically rubbing mirrors with the cars beside you. So it'll be interesting to see who gets used to it and who doesn't. I'm also wondering whether we're going to see a large sort of speedway pile up tonight. Bump drafting's all good and well. However, when you do catch up and get onto the back of those cars and you are actually pushing, any movement side to side of the car in front will almost always result in a pretty big spin. And when you are doing 300 kilometres an hour around a corner, the last thing that you want is to be put into a spin. Also interesting there, we have a look at Andrew Johnson and Jim Caperonis. We see Andrew Johnson on the high line around that high banked corner. One thing that these drivers may not have worked out yet is you can actually get the same side drafting benefit from being up against the fence that you do from being up against another driver. So it's really important in these cars, if you are going to run the high line, you run very, very high. Get yourself all the way up the top of the banking, tuck in beside that fence, and use that side draft off the fence to get a little bit of extra speed.
So for the folks at home, Josh, talk to us about side drafting. What is it? How does it affect the car? What makes it so much quicker?
Yeah, so it's just around breaking the airflow, and when you side draft on another car, it's actually that you slow the car down that's beside you. So you take air off the wing of that car, you add air to the wing of that car. So the wash off of your car gets added to the rear of the car beside you. That applies extra drag, which slows them down. I don't quite understand how the physics work when you're up against the fence, but I do know that putting your car up against the fence, once again, it just disrupts that airflow off your car and reduces drag and allows you to get a little bit of extra speed.
It's an interesting concept, and it's not something that you really have to think about in regular road course racing. You come to an oval though, and it makes such a difference. So we'll see if these drivers do get onto that. If we've got any of the race engineers listening in and perhaps relaying a bit of information to the drivers out on track. A massive hello to David Coleman joining us in the chat. Welcome back, my friend. We are hoping for a better week for Jamie Dyke, absolutely, this week as he finds himself in this pack we're watching right now. The battle for third, Dean Logsdale out in front with Point and Dyke hot on his tail. They are going side by side up the banking as they cross the start-finish line. Dyke on the outside is going to be late on the brakes, gives him a beautiful entry into the first of the infield corners here. But he is going to find himself still alongside Mark Point. Can he get the driver's Point? Going to get himself back in front. Point with a better bit of pace out of that corner and re-establishes in P4. And a huge lock-up from Michael Stewart behind, almost into the back of Dyke. That's going to cook those tyres on his Camaro, so hopefully he's able to get that back underway, and all of a sudden this battle down to really just the three cars now. Michael Stewart's going to have to do a bit of work to catch up here.
Yeah, he is, and the flat spot on those tyres, Michael Stewart is probably lucky that iRacing hasn't quite worked out how to force feedback model a flat spot, because I reckon that the front tyres on that Gen3 Camaro look more like 50-cent pieces at the moment than 20-cent pieces, but that's okay. He will get back on about things and get racing. We do see the guys head out onto the banking again. Lap 5 already, Jared. This lap, it is reasonably long in time, but between the excitement of the oval and watching the cars negotiate drafts and things like that, excuse me, through to the packed infield, the laps go ever so quickly. We see here once again Dyke certainly was faster through the bus stop, didn't quite get the exit that he might have otherwise liked, but this is a real key passing opportunity. If you can maximise your drive through the bus stop, and you can come out of the bus stop 1, 2, maybe even 3 k's an hour faster than the car in front, then you can tuck yourself into that draft. You can usually get a pass done before heading into turn 1. And as we saw, Jamie Dyke absolutely last lap showed us that you can dive late on the brakes into turn 1 around the outside and often hold your position, but it takes a very good braking application. And in these Gen 3 supercars where you don't have ABS or any other aids to potentially help you get the car pulled up, it's incredibly difficult. These aren't Gen 3 cars where you can throw the car around the outside and just press on the brake pedal a little bit harder, Jared.
Yeah, no, they take a little more skill in their brake application than something with ABS, don't they? But we'll see Jamie Dyke doing his very, very best to hold on to the back of Point in there, and you saw him as he came over the start-finish line, just hitting that 300k an hour mark. Now, that's certainly not what these supercars can top out at around an oval, but of course there's compromises to be made with the road course. You can't put a gear set in that's going to maximise your speed around the oval without compromising your ability to accelerate in the infield. And so you'll find these guys that top out pretty well bang on 300 here tonight. Nothing to be sneezed at by any stretch of the imagination, though, is it? It's a bloody fast pace to be going, and a little scary when you're such close proximity to these other cars.
Yeah, absolutely. The bus stop here puts a huge damper on the overall top speed. You don't realise just how much that slows the guys down. Otherwise, they wouldn't be much over 300 crossing the line. These cars are back up to top speed just about. Where the difference is if you can get in the draft for what is essentially 3/4 of the lap, you will find yourself going far faster than when you have to slow down for the bus stop and re-establish that draft. We do here jump forward to the battle for the lead. Less than half a second between these two guys. We don't really need to call out the amount of time, though, Jared. These cars are locked together. They'll absolutely be in the draft. And Wayne, we haven't looked much. There's two things that could be going on here. Wayne could be making sure that he's got his head around this track and he's really doing everything he can to move forward. Wayne also might be super comfortable, Jared, that he has the draft and he's close enough, and he's just playing the strategy game and making sure that he doesn't get in the lead, because of course it's one thing to be leading this race, it's another thing to hold the lead when you cross the finish line. And we see it for anyone who watches any NASCAR, the amount of strategy that goes into when do you want to lead and when do you not want to lead. This race, if you hold car speed over the car in front, this is genuinely a race where you may choose to not hold the lead until the final lap so that you don't succumb to the draft from the car in second.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference and so much more to think about as you do make your way around the oval. Something to note, though, the gap that Gamble and Walker have opened up out in front, almost 5 seconds. Absolutely massive around a track of this pace. The battle for third here with Dean Logsdale at the front of it. Hard to say whether the contest spins will jump up the front because they're going side by side as they come across the start-finish line. Walker's looking to make a move. Drops back in behind, but a real warning shot there to Scott Gamble. And sure enough, Jamie Dyke doing much the same just behind them, looking around the outside of Poynton once again. It's not quite going to get it done there, but they're just testing the limits at the moment, aren't they, of just what these cars are capable of as you do start to hit the infield. Jamie Dyke looking for every opportunity that he can to get past Mark Poynton and just pick up a couple of extra points for that extra position ahead. The gap here to this battle for third, it's hard to say whether the back and forth nature between Logsdale, Poynton and Dyke has actually slowed them down, or whether Gamble and Walker out in front are actually just that quick tonight. Because a 5-second gap it's almost unheard of this season, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I think that it'll be a little bit of both. So what I have certainly found for myself around Daytona is once you start squabbling for position, there's very few places to actually go faster than other cars. So if you lose time through fighting with someone, it's almost impossible to make that back up because the lap times are so tight, and if there's two cars that are working together, they're not battling for position, they're not slowing each other up by having to defend, etc., then you just never go faster than them on the super speedway, and there's so much time that can be won and lost. And I think that what you see there is Scotty Gamble and Wayne Walker out the front. Wayne hasn't put many moves on. As we see now, Mark Poynton sneaks just ever so slightly ahead, but of course he is on the outside as we head across the start-finish line and break into turn one. Does Poynton have enough overlap? Once again, we see that inside line. Dean Logsdale just able to break a little bit later, take the preferred line and immediately slot back into place. This is now lap 9 out of 10, and as we just saw, it was only last lap that we watched Jamie Dyke from Fishing Motorsports doing the same thing, as we now flick our attention across to Scott McCune and Martin, who are having the very same battle.
What I was going to say, gets back underneath there on the inside. He had a big look, didn't he?
Very close. There's almost only one passing opportunity on this whole track, and that is into turn 1. Everything else is about setting yourself up and being close enough. There's a couple of other opportunities if the car in front makes a mistake, but on, you know, ability to make the pass yourself, it's really only into turn 1. And, you know, so we see a 10-lap race like this. If you discount the first corner, you've only got 9 passing opportunities for the whole race. So, you know, you have to, in those battle packs, it's just all about perseverance. Get through the corners as well as you can. Be, you know, a tenth, maybe 2 tenths off the back of the car in front, and get on that super speedway section in the draft and really try and make something happen.
That's absolutely key. We've said it a few times tonight. You cannot afford to drop out of the draft as you do go around the bank sections particularly. And Jamie Dyke is on the verge of dropping out of the back here of Mark Point, and he's going to have to try and pick up a little extra, or he's going to have to make it all up under brakes as they cross towards turn 1 after the start-finish line. We're on to the final lap there. You can just see off in the distance Gamble and Walker crossing the line to set us off under the white flag. Jamie Dyke up the outside. This is going to be the lap that he really sends it, goes for it, deep under brakes. Again, though, pointing up the inside, just nowhere for Dyke to get through. He's going to have to look for another opportunity. I don't know where he's going to find it at this point. It's going to be a frantic run to the line. Further back, right behind them, Stephen Varga has found himself overtaken by John Latham. That's been building up for a little while now. And then we jump to the front, and Scott Gamble and Wayne Walker, again, making their way through the horseshoe, still locked together. Has Wayne Walker just been waiting this whole time, or is he just comfortable to sit in second behind Gamble, I wonder? You know, is he waiting to make some move on this last set of corners, because we are heading onto the speedway section, and only the bus stop really has an opportunity for it.
I actually think, Jared, if Wayne Walker can get a good enough run through the bus stop, can get on the back of Scotty Gamble, so he needs to come out of the bus stop, you know, no more than probably a tenth or a tenth and a half off the back of Scott Gamble, then he can use the draft and potentially the side draft. And what we see here at Daytona is that it's often actually the right-hand lane, the outside lane, that is fastest to the control line. So frequently we see the car on the outside 1/100th, or even sometimes only in the thousandths of a second. He's not quite close enough here. He's still 2 tenths off. He's not going to make that up. You can see that time just dropping constantly down to 1.3. He's going to fire out to the right-hand side here and try to use the overlap. You see, he nearly gets it done. He pulls that all the way from nearly 2 tenths to 3. Oh, wow, that's a photo finish for all 3 drivers coming across the line there, as we see Logsdale, Poynton and Dyke cross the line in their running order.
Less than a tenth separating the 3 of them, though, in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And then Latham running an identical time to Dyke. So it looks like those guys came across the line 4 wide. But yeah, interesting. Some of these guys obviously know how it works. But yeah, coming out of the bus stop, you can fire up behind the car in front, tuck onto the side draft, and you will actually, from the right-hand lane, you will win the race to the control line. So a really, really close finish there between Logsdale, Poynton, Dyke and Latham, which is absolutely unreal to see.
Yeah, it's kind of what you expect, really, isn't it, when you get to the super speedway style tracks? As we wait for the last drivers to make their way to the line, Michael Power and David Logsdale just about to join us here on the other side of the start-finish line. As I think actually Michael Power may have had a bit of an issue further back, certainly a lot of damage on the frame of that car. So he's dragging a severely wounded Southern Cross Racing car across the line here. And David Logsdale, I fear, may not be in much better shape. Well, it does look it. There's certainly been some significant impact there, and we take a quick look at Michael Power's incident, and he's just gotten it all sorts of wrong on the way out of the bus stop, and a big impact with that outside wall, and that has done the damage in the end.
Yeah, it's so easy to do there, Jared. There's a little bit of a hump on the way out of the bus stop, and if you get it just wrong, car will burst into wheel spin and straight in the fence. It's so easy to do.
Have a look at some of these gaps though as we look through the results from race number 1, welcoming Luke Allman to the chat, of course. Scott Gamble takes the win by just shy of 400ths of a second over Wayne Walker, so nothing in it at the line there. Dean Logsdale, Mark Boynton and Jamie Dyke all crossing within about the same, less than a tenth, separating those 3 drivers. And then take a look at Michael Stewart and John Latham, their finish down to 4,000th of a second. And Michael Stewart just on the right side of 10 seconds behind Scott Campbell. That is very, very close for 6th and 7th there. Stephen Varga, Damon Fisher and Brian Minogue rounding out your top 10. Some really close finishes. Jamie Dyke's going to have the benefit of the reverse top 5 in race number 2. It's going to be interesting to see what he makes of it.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be very interesting. Sorry, Jared. I was just listening into some interesting race control comms. A couple of guys offering a couple of free character references, should I say, of each other. But very exciting to get ready for a slightly longer race. Throw in a little bit of pit stop strategy and all of those sorts of things. So if we thought that it was cool seeing those finishing times, Jared, in race 1, I can nearly guarantee you that we will see the same thing in race 2. It's just going to be a significantly longer race before we get there.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see how the pit stops play out, because of course that adds a whole other element here at Daytona. And the pit lane, although reasonably short, is also at a very, very high speed section of the track, and so you do lose quite a bit of time every time that you do duck in there. So look, given that we saw a very, very clean first race, I do wonder if perhaps the prospect of a safety car is off the cards a little for race number 2, because that would make a huge difference to the strategy here. But we didn't see any of that in race 1. So, I mean, what do you make of that from a driver's perspective?
Look, there's definitely a lot of very good driving going on. Is probably what I make of it. It's a track where mistakes are punished incredibly severely, particularly mistakes while passing. So, one thing that I noticed. Or didn't notice, I guess is probably the way to put it, is passes into the bus stop. The guys really seem to know that that's just fraught with danger, especially in these cars that love to move around. But that's a really classic example of where, if one person makes a mistake in the bus stop, cars come out too wide, they trip over each other, and, by the time that the next group of cars arrive on scene and potentially unsighted because you're tucked right up behind the car in front, you're doing a couple of 100 k's an hour and all of a sudden the cars are just, it's just absolute carnage. So I think that what we'll see is, any crashes out on the super speedway section probably do result in a safety car. But obviously it's a reasonably easy section of road in these cars. And so we would like to hope that there is no accidents out there.
Fingers crossed. Well, we've got a couple of minutes to go before we get underway for race number 2. It is worth highlighting it is almost time for round 2 of the Alliance Sim Racing Endurance Championship for 2025. June 15th, the Sandown 500 will be running. That is, of course, a Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. And we will see a return to the track that many of these drivers I know hold near and dear to their hearts. Sandown is the home of horsepower and absolutely the one of the most storied tracks when it comes to V8 supercar racing. We are expecting a maximum field of around 35 entrants, and I would think that we've probably got about 15 or 20 entrants from round 1 who will of course have first crack at that. But if you are watching and you're interested in getting involved in the Endurance Championship, then jump into the Discord. The link has just been popped into the chat here. Join up, come and have a chat to the team about getting involved in that race on June 15th. And who knows, you could find yourselves sharing the podium with some of the races that you are watching here this evening. Be warned though, it is definitely stiff competition. These guys love their Gen 3 supercars, and so it's not for the faint of heart, Josh.
No, it's not. But talk about an absolute classic of Australian V8 endurance racing. What a fantastic track! Looks pretty simple on paper. Really only 4 braking zones and a couple of long straights, and maybe a squiggle at each end. But such a great place to race supercars. Nowhere better, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree. It's one of my favourites as well. I've come to love it. I didn't originally, but I have definitely come to love it, I'll say that much. Jamie Dyke takes pole here in race number 2 with the reverse top 5 grid. Mark Poynton will start alongside him, so in the end it's taken the reverse grid to allow Jamie Dyke to make the pass on Mark Poynton, and then Dean Logsdale and Wayne Walker behind them on row 2 with Scott Gamble taking 5th spot after his win in race 1. The rest of the field unchanged from there after their finishing positions in race number 1. So we do have pretty well the same running order from there down. Michael Stewart in 6th, just missing out on the reverse top 5. John Latham and Stephen Varga ahead of Damon Fisher and Brian Minogue will round out your front 10. Then Damien Cairns and James Hardy. Behind them, Alex Kidas and Andrew Hoffman ahead of Todd Martin and Scott McCune. Then Simon Farrington and Peter Latham line up ahead of Mick Clifton and Andrew Johnston. Rick Vigar and Jim Caparonis in 21st and 22nd ahead of Michael Power and David Logsdale. And rounding the grid out, Dylan Sipple and Troy Sipple find themselves at the back of the pack for race number 2. 24 laps lie ahead of us, and 2 compulsory pit stops to boot. It is going to be a very, very interesting second race here. Do make sure you stick with us. You've got a minute or 2 before we get underway, though. So if you do need to grab yourself a refill, now is a fantastic time. We will be right back with some racing in just a moment. With apologies, of course, to West Automotive. We're coming back a little earlier than expected from the break because we are underway here for race number 2. Lap 1 of 24 begins, and again, a very, very clean start from the drivers on track. None of the expected issues as we make our way through the first corner. Jamie Dyke maintains his lead as we hit the infield for the first time here in race 2, and he'll be looking to extend out in front of Mark Poynton as quickly as he possibly can. They make their way to the Rodriguez International Horseshoe. And you can see a huge moment there for James Hardy from Quantum Racing. Fires off the track. And I'm not quite sure how he's managed that. Just very late on the brakes. Couldn't get it pulled up in time. So he's dropped down the timing tower significantly as a result. We keep our eyes though up the front because Wayne Walker maintains his 3rd position. And if the championship standings are anything to go by from earlier this evening, then that is where he's looking to stay. Notable absence this evening, and it didn't occur to me until just now, but Matt Vanderkraan is actually not racing this evening. So it will be interesting to see the impact that has on his championship standings. Mr. Harris, I hope you've made it back in time to catch the start of this race. It snuck up on us a little bit there. So apologies to Rick Vigar and the team at West Automotive, but we did have to cut our ad break just a little bit short to make sure we didn't miss any of the action as we go through the bus stop the first time. Again, very, very clean, very fast. These drivers chucking it over those curbs like they're at the Gold Coast. And I think it's probably one of the few bus stops where you can have a bit of fun with it like that, isn't it?
Yeah, you can. Probably the best one in all of iRacing in a supercar is Charlotte Roval. And for anyone out there who may be bored a little bit later tonight, load up an iRacing test session at Charlotte Roval. I think it's the 2018 version with the fast chicane. And you can absolutely send it through there at 1,000,000 kilometres an hour. It feels like it is a lot of fun. Right now, though, we see the field absolutely spreading. Start of lap 2 of 24, Jared, and they are jostling for position all over the place. We see here, I believe that is Hoffman, Caparonis, and Latham, although it looks like Latham has just
He's
been
copped a bit of a tag there, yeah. Jump forward from that battle, so he'll get himself back on track and underway. A bit of a coordinated effort, perhaps, from the Southern Cross Racing entries to just line him up. It was brilliantly executed. I feel like maybe coming to America, they've been watching a few of the pit manoeuvres that the Highway Patrol like to pull here, and decided to try it on. I don't know.
It was pretty well done.
It was. I can't hold anything against him. 10 out of 10 from this commentator. We'll take a look here at the battle for ninth. Damon Fisher is trying desperately to reel in Brian Minogue. My apologies. Damien Cairns finds himself a little further up the road as they head towards the bus stop, but you can see the cars fanning out across the track, just looking to see if they're going to have a line on. Keep an eye on Scott McCune as he fends off Alex Kinas from All Mate and Sons. Further up though, Scott Gamble up the inside. Is he going to have it here? He's actually lost a couple of positions, so whether or not he's just found himself a little slow out of the bus stop, he's actually dropping
could be a
back.
bus stop slowdown. Yeah, that looks like a bus stop slowdown to me. That's quite slow. And it's actually the problem with the bus stop slowdown, Jared. You need to avoid them like the plague because they're actually not that long of a slowdown. But by the time that you have lost that much speed, you just can't recover it. So once you have bled the slowdown off, you're still doing 20 k's an hour less than everyone else, and cars just keep driving past. It's mighty frustrating, that's for sure.
Scott Gamble demonstrating it beautifully for us. Probably not what he had in mind, but certainly made the point as we see another bit of contact. That is Farrington getting caught up with, by looking at Alex Kinas as they make their way through the horseshoe. And a big moment there for Rick Weiger, just getting forced to the side of the track, manages to keep it pointing the right way, but loses a lot of speed in the process, and he'll be fighting with Todd Martin from Quantum Racing now on the way through the horseshoe. Plenty of movement throughout the field, and it's going to be interesting to see just what happens with the pit stops here this evening. I don't quite know what the strategy will be here. It's a bit of an unusual track to be thinking about pit stops and when to make them. In the absence of a safety car, I mean, that's the obvious time to get the pit stop in, but 24 laps is not a particularly long distance around here. It's not going to chew huge amounts of fuel, so you probably don't need to worry too much about spacing it out from a fuel perspective. That's going to be an interesting one for Clifton. Certainly an off track, maybe not a slowdown, but we'll see how it goes as Kiedis desperately struggles to get his pace back up. And here we go, side by side with 3 wide on the banking. That's Rick Weiger up the middle, and he jumps in behind Simon Farrington as they make their way around again. Further up though, John Latham is side by side with Dean Logsdale as they come down, and of course Latham finding himself on the outside is going to really struggle to get an extra position out of this. Logsdale shuts the door just by following that preferred line, and once again, turn 1, it's not as kind as perhaps you'd think.
No, it's not, and we're really starting to see some of those battle packs form up now.
It's getting a little hairy back here for 15th though, isn't it? These guys are throwing these cars through the corners, and we're seeing 2x2 through a lot of these turns. The 3 quantum entries all caught up in this as well. You've got Todd Martin, James Hardy, Troy Sipple all in amongst it. We're starting to see perhaps the first pit stop, Peter Latham going in there. Whether that's damage, we've got a safety car called.
Alex Kiedis has called for a tow, I would suggest. I don't believe I saw Alex Kiedis having any sort of issue. I think that might be a blown engine, Jared.
You can see he's limping it there, so we'll see if we can find just a little further back where that might have occurred. Let's go back just a little further. And this is prior to the bus stop, so it looks like he's fairly clean and tidy through there. No great issues.
Now this is, so while we wait for this, issue to unfold, Jared, this is exactly what can happen in the bus stop. So Alex Kiedis there, he's made a pretty, bold move on the way in to the bus stop, which has actually compromised his position through the bus stop. Everyone behind him got a much better run, which means that then as they open the throttle up onto the super speedway section, Kiedis he's out of sync. He's got no speed compared to those around him, and before you know it, there's just cars everywhere. And there we go. The telltale downshift puff of smoke. These Gen 3 supercars, they love nothing more than blowing engines. Once again, we see. Look, I don't want to point out the fact that it's a Ford Mustang, but I will.
And here come the pit stops. Unsurprisingly, all of the field making their way in. David Logsdale, a long way back, but we'll see if he joins the fray, and of course he does. Files on in to the pit stop, so all of these drivers getting that first pit stop out of the way under safety car. Jamie Dyke retains his first position. There's Alex Kiedis absolutely stranded on the other side of the pit exit wall. So it doesn't look like we'll see very much in the way of change of positions through this pit stop. And I think most of the drivers probably pretty happy to see a safety car, because it does take a little bit of the thought process out of when to take your first one, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And I was just before the safety car, Jared, I was just going to make a comment that Daytona is such an interesting track to work out your pit strategy, because just about everywhere else, you want to pit on your own, you want clean, fresh track, and you want to execute either an undercut or an overcut. In a supercar, typically it's an undercut, but still, you want to either pit early, get on fresh tyres, lap on your own, no traffic around, or you want to run a long time, run as long as you can, and then at the very end, make a pit. Now, they're both legitimate strategies. Daytona, however, the absolute worst place that you can be is on your own. So if you are in second, or if you are the trailing car in whatever battle you're in, and you see, particularly if you have another car with you, if it's a 3-car train, what you want to do is let the front car go into the pits, and then you keep going. And the reason that you keep going is you take that other car with you. You can keep doing fast laps. That the car that's pitted is now all on their own. They're circulating on your own here, Jared, can cost you well over a second a lap just because you don't have the tow.
It's a huge difference.
It's a huge difference. So ideally, you find yourself grouped with a teammate, but obviously, as we can see, Fishy Motorsports, Juiced Frog Leap Racing, and Accelerate Sim Sports, and even a Quantum car by the look of it, all the first 4 all on their own. So they are having to make, they've all got partners in the field, but they're not with them. And so they are all having to make alliances on the run. And unfortunately, or fortunately, it depends on how you look at it, our drivers aren't able to talk to each other during the race, Jared, unless they're in a Discord voice chat together. So you can talk to your teammates, but you can't talk to other drivers. No, they're not able to make alliances and, hey, when do you want to pit and when do you not want to pit? They all sort of have to do it from, car language and things like that. Who do they want to race with and who do they not want to race with? So from a driver's perspective, seeing the safety car come out is an absolute godsend when you've got to make a couple of pit stops, I'm here to tell you.
Absolutely. I do want to go back and just take a look, because I noticed in the background a bit of drama under safety car with a few of the Quantum Racing entries, and I'm not quite sure what's happened. We'll go back and take a quick look. And this has all been, so Todd Barton, Troy Sipple, and James Hardy, the 3 Quantum cars, absolutely firing out of the pits, and perhaps not realising as they came around the corner that that's where the lineup was. I think they were lucky to avoid coming together there.
Yeah, they were, and we talk about catching the train. Unfortunately, they caught it a little bit too fast.
Yeah, I don't think they were quite expecting it to be at such a crawl at that point. We make our way around again under safety car. Another lap to go here. Perhaps this will be the lap that we see him come in. Alex Kiedis has been towed to the pits, so his crew will be working away on that engine. But certainly not the way that he would have wanted his night to go. Andrew Hoffman also finds himself a long way back, and yeah, not having the best night either. But for these guys out in front, they're just at this stage probably just glad to get some laps in at a slower pace and to get themselves a little bit closer to not having to worry about any of the fueling conversations that may need to occur. A 10-second post-race penalty you would have seen just announced by race control for car number 24, which is John Latham. The safety car is coming in this lap. We've just seen race control announce that. So the drivers will be getting ready to go green once again. They make their way through the dogleg at a very sedate pace here under safety car. It's certainly not the usual pace around this track, and we'll be back up to full speed, 300k an hour in not too long at all. Now, Jamie Dyke, what does he do here? This is usually what we want to see, right? Is a nice big jump at the start, get yourself some space over the other drivers when you're in control. But again, super speedway, maybe not the place to do it. The only saving grace, of course, will be that he's coming back onto the infield almost immediately after that control line. But even then, what's the use of shooting at the other side and being all on your own, right?
I think that you still want enough of a gap, Jared, that you feel comfortable into turn one. So Jamie Dyke will try and make a jump and make a small bolt for turn one. He'll just get himself back in his groove through the infield, and he'll know that no matter what, the train will catch up to him again, unless for some reason, if he can drop Poynton and then Poynton drops Walker, then the three of them will circulate, on their own for a number of laps before anyone can form up a little battle pack and drive themselves back to the front. So Jamie Dyke will still be pushing to break away. So we do now have the safety car pulling away and leaving Jamie Dyke in control of the field, and we will wait to see when the move happens. We'll now see all the cars just punch back up nicely, get themselves in that nice little battle pack, making sure that they are really tightly packed on the cars in front. We'll see, no doubt, Mark Poynton will close right back up to the back of Jamie Dyke before the restart zone. I have to admit, I'm not 100% sure of where the restart zone is tonight, but it'll be somewhere through this last corner on the run to the start finish line. I'm surprised to see Poynton sitting that far back, I'll be honest, Jared. If it was me, I would be just about reading the part number on the boot lid of the car in front of me. So
yeah, and this is the difference, right? When you come to ovals, what looks like a fairly comfortable flying distance is really about 2 or 3 meters too far back compared to any of the other road courses these guys go to. It's a completely different way of thinking that's required if you want to stay in the little slipstream that is available off the back of a Gen3.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not exactly the slippiest car around, and you want to be tight on the back of the car in front. We see here Dyke going long. This is probably longer than I expected. He is just cruising along.
There he goes. Foot goes down just as they reach the tri-oval banking, and that's the jump that Jamie Dyke was hoping for. Opens it up to 4/10, but Poynton immediately starting to close that back down. So perhaps not as much benefit as Jamie Dyke was hoping for from that restart tactic. But either way, he's got himself some clean air to run into now. And let's see what he can do with it. Jamie Dyke out in front as we enter lap 7 of 24 here in race number 2. A few moves happening down through the back of the field. Damien Cairns and Dean Logsdale going side by side through the horseshoe, and Cairns losing that position needs to tuck in behind and stick with Dean Logsdale. They make their way through the high-speed dogleg and down to horseshoe number 2 before heading back to the speedway section. Jamie Dyke, look, 6/10, can't argue with that. It's not too bad on a restart like that.
No, it's exactly the start that he would have wanted.
Yeah, it's hopefully enough to give him some breathing room as they make their way up onto the first of the banked corners. And right now, it seems to be paying off because Poynton, of course, not quite close enough to get any benefit from the car ahead. In fact, probably a long way further back than he really needs to be, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can see that he is slowly dragging Jamie Dyke in, but that's just immediately dropped back off again, and it's all as they go through this bus stop, of course. But you need to be, like we can see here with McCune and Latham, you need to be line astern to get the genuine benefit of the draft. And what Jamie Dyke's been able to do is just buy himself ever so slightly enough space that he feels at least comfortable. However, Poynton has had a far better run through the bus stop, and we can see him now. He's closed right up again as they head into turn one. But still, Jamie Dyke having enough room to comfortably hold that position. We saw Dyke great under brakes into turn one in race one, getting up the outside of Poynton basically every lap. You would have to think that Jamie Dyke is pretty comfortable heading into turn one, as long as there's no overlap. I think that he'd be pretty comfortable that he can get the braking applied and get the car stopped and through the turn without much hassle. That's for sure.
Taking back for just a moment there, McCune putting a phenomenal passing move onto turn one and getting past the inside of John Latham. I think Latham just perhaps caught sleeping a little bit, wasn't expecting McCune to fire it up the inside, but it's paid off for him. Now he just needs to hold on to that position. These two I saw were sticking pretty closely through a lot of the practice session as well, if I'm not mistaken. So I do wonder if they were just getting a bit of that over practicing, because it's certainly one of the best demonstrations we've seen tonight of the kind of slipstreaming that's needed. As we speak, though, McCune has not allowed Latham to catch back up, so they're clearly not arranging anything at this stage. McCune's quite happy to start to pull away out in front. We go back to the front of the field, though. Jamie Dyke, Mark Poynton and Wayne Walker continue their dominance at the front of the field, and the gap to Scott Gamble, that 1.4 seconds, just starting to get away from them again. Michael Stewart right on the back of Stephen Varga here, so the two of them looking to chase down Scott Gamble. And still a long way to go in this race, but it'll be over before you know it here at Daytona. These laps just rack up so very quickly. Even the infield here is such a high-speed section of track. No elevation changes to worry about. A couple of horseshoes and a dogleg, really, and you're back onto the speedway again.
It's actually quite interesting, Jared, because you have, as we see there, Farrington
big moment,
having a big lose and asking politely if Jim Caparonis would straighten him out, teammate to teammate, and Jim does help, but interesting to see whether there's going to be any damage there, as we see a whole heap of Quantum and Southern Racing cars all together, with Mick Clifton in an Accelerate sim racing car, just kind of a fish out of water at the moment in that little gaggle of cars. But these guys do get themselves back in a single file line and get to racing. The infield, though, Jared, it's really interesting. This is probably a track where, unlike most, it's all thinking and less doing. Normally we talk on the racetrack about you get to the straight and you're really happy because you get an opportunity to think. This track, you do so much thinking and plotting and scheming and how do I get the right exit out of X, Y, and Z corner so that I'm positioned correctly to get the toe so that I can make the pass into one. And then suddenly you're back at turn one again and none of it worked and you're still behind the car that you want to pass, and you've got to set yourself up and try again. And a pass on this track, as we see there, Todd Martin absolutely sent that thing into the bus stop, and I think it was only that Power behind him was scared and that he didn't get a better run through there. That was an impressive piece of car control to pull it up in time. We do jump forward to Michael Stewart and our mate Vargs, who are having an absolute ripper of a battle. Only a couple of tenths between them and a real, train forming up there, Jared. 5 cars in that battle. If we have a look at the totem pole, they certainly aren't the only one. Fantastic track this for producing really good quality racing. Difficult to pass on though, so it's good fun. You get yourself in these little battles and you'll run as a train for 15 minutes and you feel like bashing your head into the steering wheel at times, Jared, just wondering what on earth you have to do to get a pass done. But in the meantime, your mirrors and windscreen are entirely full of nothing but Gen 3 Super.
Yeah, well, this is the way it goes. But of course, in the immortal words of Alia, if at first you don't succeed, dust yourself off and try again. That's what these guys are going to have to do this evening as they try and set up these passes. It really is brutal trying to get just the right timing, because the braking is so important on the few passing opportunities that you do have here. You know, into the bus stop, into turn one. It's almost the most difficult track I think we've seen this season for a passing opportunity to actually take place without, of course, a mistake from the driver in front. There's just so little room to try different lines into these corners, and we've seen it time and time again on turn one especially. So many times drivers have managed to get around the outside. They've got the extra pace, but once you're off that ideal line, you're just so far out of whack for the corner speed that you need that you've got no choice but to drop back in behind.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And we see these two guys here running line astern, you know, crossing the line 1,000th of a second apart. And then sure enough, we go into turn one and Vargs is able to take the preferred line and Michael Stewart falls off the back and they'll start themselves up again. We go back, a couple of quantum cars, and I think that was Power in the...
locks it up and tags James Hardy.
On Quantum.
Yeah, Power's going to have a moment there as well.
Yeah, just a couple of people fighting for the same... Oh, no, and we see their Power in the background is around. So that's...
Into the wall he goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's been a lot of rubbing of panels tonight between Southern Cross and Quantum Racing. I don't know if it's just happens to be where we've been looking, but they seem to all be coming together far too regularly back here at the midpoint of the pack. And yeah, it's resulted in some very interesting moves so far, let's say.
It has, but we're getting to that end of the season. You know, there's potentially either two things generally happen at this time of the season, Jared. It's either that there's one person in the team in championship contention, so all efforts go to helping them, or no team member is in the hunt for the championship, and so then it becomes quite literally every person for themselves, because it doesn't really matter who you crash into in the team. No one's going to win anyway, so you might as well go for a bit of personal growth.
Interestingly, the 10-second post-race penalty just coming through then was for Michael Power, who just got tagged. So he's copped a 10-second penalty for an incident back on lap 7. I do wonder if there's going to be a penalty awarded the other way after that bit of contact with the quantum racing entry, but we'll have to wait and see. A couple notable mentions. Wayne Walker is in for his second stop now. Mick Clifton coming in as well. But have a look at that. Wayne Walker was sitting in third. He's already back to 17th and continues to drop as cars make their way past. But of course he'll get the benefit of making the run past the rest of these cars if and when they do come in for their second stop, or as a safety car comes out. That would be probably his worst case scenario right now, because it diminishes the opportunities set up for himself.
Yeah, and you know, it's just interesting to see how these races always pan out at Daytona, Jared. It doesn't really matter what your strategy is. It's not uncommon to see a couple of cars end up running line astern, or there's certainly not many races I've done here, Jared, where I've legitimately ended up on my own. Let's put it that way.
No, it's a pretty rare thing. We ride on board with Mark pointing down towards the bus stop, Jamie Dyke out in front, the flames from the exhaust on the downshift looking absolutely phenomenal from this angle. Dyke a little bit loose on the exit. Can Poynton capitalise on that, though? We've seen it a couple of times that Poynton tends to have the better run out of the bus stop, and the slipstream's going to help him here. You can see him starting to close that gap up ever so slightly, and here he goes looking for the move around the outside.
He's got to close that gap up, Jared. He's got a great run, but it could have been such a better run if those cars were, nearly touching each other. And you saw it evidenced in such graphic nature as we see the nose of Scotty Gamble's car there, just poking up on the inside, sniffing around, wondering if there's a place to pass. But when Mark Poynton came out from that tow, we saw dramatically how quickly he stopped gaining on Jamie Dyke. He needed to tuck in beside Dyke and keep some, level of slip so that he didn't, end up matching Dyke's speed. And unfortunately, he lost that toe, and we didn't get to see a harder fought battle into turn one. But Scotty Gamble definitely bought into this little battle, and Jamie Dyke now with the 7/10 lead as they head back out onto the oval on lap 13 of 24. Jamie Dyke's probably just breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief this time. However, we are heading back to the bus stop, and as you noted last lap, Jared, Mark Horton definitely seems to have the bus stop nailed. It's a bit of a trap, the old bus stop, Jared. You see the car behind you or in front of you get a better exit, and so you get there the next lap and you think to yourself, I've just got to brake a little bit deeper, I've got to be a little bit faster through the bus stop. But really what rewards time in the bus stop is under-driving the car, having it lined up for the exit at the right point, and being able to be the first on the throttle, because they who are first on the throttle in the bus stop will be the fastest come to start finish. There's no doubt.
It's going to be so very important in about 11 laps time as we see both Gamble and Poynton going for their second stop. So Jamie Dyke, Gamble really has the advantage here of being able to just follow Poynton in through the pits as they make a little bit of contact there in the pit lane. That's going to be, I would imagine, at least a warning from the stewards for that pit lane contact. Jamie Dyke doesn't have the ability to follow the people in behind him, so he's now going to have to decide when to make his second stop and just how much it's going to cost him. Quite a number of cars coming in for their second stop on that lap. Makes me wonder if the fuel situation is perhaps where they'd calculate, or if it's just that halfway point of the race and they've decided, this is as good as any time to make their way into the pits.
Not 100% sure, but what I do know is that I'm now incredibly interested to see where Jamie Dyke comes out and he pits. So even if it's only one lap, how much time does Jamie Dyke lose on this lap completely on his own in comparison to Wayne Walker and Mark Poynton, who dived in a pits together, although I do notice that Wayne Walker has some 5 seconds on Mark Poynton, so not 100% sure what's happened there. Although it was Scotty Gamble, so my apologies, everyone. I do have my cars mixed up on who it was in second and third. However, there is a fair bit of space as well between Mark Poynton and Scotty Gamble, so potentially a difference in the amount of fuel taken in the first stop. We do now see Jamie Dyke dive straight in the pits, not at all surprised to see the leader come straight into pits. Like I said at the start of this race, the last place that you want to be is all on your own. And we do now have a look back. Poynton and Scotty Gamble both coming through the bus stop and a couple of seconds apart, but we'll see where they come together. We can see down the bottom of the screen Dyke is in the pit lane and he will be getting serviced as quickly as he possibly can and getting back out and getting on the road again.
Stop. So for reference, Poynton and Gamble both took 13.73 seconds in their pit box. The only difference between them, Scott Gamble took a little over a second and a half longer to transit the pit lane. So take a look at where Jamie Dyke's come out though. His pit stop absolutely cracking 12.43 and he's actually left himself out in front. So he's just up the road, you can see him there at the top of the screen. So he's actually created a bit of separation there. A really, really well executed pit stop for Jamie Dyke. Let's see how this plays out. The thing to note though, Wayne Walker has come out ahead of Jamie Dyke. So he pitted a few laps earlier, just made it an early stop, but that's actually put him in a prime position. He is the leading car that has both their stops done at this stage of the race.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that Wayne Walker has the fastest lap of the race, some 2 tenths or 2.5 tenths of a second faster than Jamie. So
doesn't sound like much, but it's a fair bit of distance
here.
Doesn't sound like
much. If you can do 2 tenths every lap over 15 laps, that's still 3 seconds.
Yeah, the gear's turning there, mate.
Yeah, look, I did. The little monkey that sits in there and claps the cymbal together was working overtime. But the point is that if Wayne Walker was able to be in a train that was running fast, so not a train battling each other, but one that was just genuinely turning out fast laps, then he would have been faster. We saw there for the first, 14 laps. Jamie Dyke, other than a couple of laps where the guys closed up a little bit behind him, but they really did run, 3/4 of a second apart from each other, and just very much ran their own battle, and that will have had them down ever so slightly on speed, and potentially, Wayne Walker is in the box seat at the moment. He's 1.8 seconds in front of Jamie Dyke, and both stops are done.
We'll just have to wait and see what's left in the remaining 8 or so laps here at Daytona International Speedway. This is Season 4, of course, of the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars Series Round 9, the penultimate round before we finish up next week this season and crown our champion. I tell you what, it is a tough one to call, but Wayne Walker is setting himself up beautifully to pick this one up. Of course, Interlagos, the last track yet to come. And it's going to be too tight to call, I suspect. But we will have to see how, of course, this last rock round plays out for some of the names that may still be in the competition here. We've got a few little packs starting to reform as the pit stops really do space people out here in terms of the groups that we've had running. This is probably about the closest battle on track right now, with Dean Logsdale giving John Latham a bit of a tow around the bacon as they try and catch up to the back end. Scott Gamble in 8th and Stephen Varga right behind them. Look at the front of the field though, Michael Stewart. He's enjoying a 10.5 second gap for now, but keep in mind those front 4, Stewart, Varga, Capronis and Minogue, all still need to make a second compulsory stop. I can't see there being a safety car at this stage. Have a look at this though, just note Latham trying the side draft out a little, needs to get a little closer to make the best of it, but you can see how much it slowed Logsdale down there. They're now neck and neck, and Latham has the run on. It does certainly make a difference.
It's great to the line, Jared. It definitely gets you to the finish line faster, but as you'll see here, Logsdale throws it into the corner, has the preferred line, and just slams the door closed again. These supercars proving lap after lap after lap that you can't hang around the outside of turn 1 and brake late enough to get the pass done. So that side draft move on the outside is fantastic to race to the start finish line. Not proving to be anywhere near as successful in racing to the first corner.
A good little trick to play around with though, and have up the sleeve the last lap in about call it 12 minutes time from now. So we'll keep an eye on Latham and see what he manages to pull out of the hat. We're still waiting on their front 4 to make their second pit stop. Wayne Walker fairly comfortable with a couple of seconds, almost 3 seconds over Jamie Dyke right now. Mark Boynton even further back again. John Latham all over the back of Dean Logsdale.
That's how you draft, Jared.
That is absolutely how you do it. The view back from Logsdale's car. Latham is right there, tucked in under that spoiler, taking full advantage of the air being pushed up and over.
And look
the top
at that
of his car.
run through the bus stop.
Keep on the background though, because here comes Stephen Varga.
So potentially there Latham having to get out of the throttle to allow Dean Logsdale to get running again, and Vargs just being able to put the run on. Vargs now tucked in with Latham. Can he push him to a pass? He's backed off. He doesn't want a bar of that. Once again, Latham stuck on the outside.
Going on there, though. I reckon I saw Latham give Logger just a little bit of a nudge along, but not enough to make a huge difference at this point. The three of them need to be careful they don't get too far separated from Scott Gamble up ahead while they're doing all of this, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. But if they can get this sorted out into the right order so that they're in genuine lap speed order, they will drag each other along for the run. And right at the moment, it looks to me like Latham's probably got a little bit more speed. And if he could get himself to the front, he may even drag Logsdale with him for a few laps. But it is certainly lovely and close as we now quickly jump back and have a bit of a look at an incident, Jared.
This is, of course, Wayne Walker. I'm not sure why it's jumped to that one. We wanted to see Wayne Walker's passing Brian Minogue because Walker's managed to not only catch but get past Walker around the outside here. So I'm not quite sure how he's managed to pick it up. I feel like Minogue may have had an issue somewhere that caught Walker that time, but as it stands, we've had a couple of those front runners drop in to do their pit stops. Logsdale on his way back out of the pits now. So Jim Caperonis out in front will still need to come in for his pit, and he does so now, just making his way into the pit lane. Brian Minogue has managed to give Jamie Dyke a little bit of a tow here, perhaps not intentionally, but of course Minogue going in, so it's now Wayne Walker and Jamie Dyke resuming the battle out in front. And we will see if Dyke's got what it takes to reel in Walker. They're still fairly close at this point, only about 1.3 seconds at the moment. So Dyke managing to pull a fair bit back there. Mark Boynton hasn't had the same luck. He's 3.5 and approaching 4 seconds behind these front two. So he's got a lot of work to do. G'day Jetto, welcome on into the chat. Qualifying times a little quicker than what we're seeing at the moment. We're seeing qualifying times in the 45s for the most part for the top sort of 6 to 10 cars. So mid 45s about what you can expect out of the Gen 3 supercar around the road course here. The best laps we've seen here tonight during race 2, I think a 1:45.6 is probably about the quickest that we've seen so far. A 1:45.63 for Wayne Walker, who's out in front right now. 1:45.65 for Dean Logsdale back in 7th. But of course, as the tyres have started to just wear in a little bit, we're about 5-6 laps, maybe 7 laps in from the pit stops where these guys took their last set. And so of course they're starting to enter that danger zone for these tyres where they do start to just fade off a little before they stabilise again. So the drivers will have to be pretty careful not to push too hard at this point of the race.
No, it's this track is actually surprisingly brutal on tyres, especially the right rear. There's nothing that you can do about it, but they just spend so long loaded with so much weight on them on these bankings, Jared, that the right rear really does superheat and makes turn 1 in particular really quite difficult because that right rear is so hot. There's not much grip left in it, so it's a bit of a delicate balancing act to get the car into turn 1 properly. And then, of course, it only just starts to have a little bit of a breather, and you're back out on the oval, absolutely punishing that tyre all over again. We see here Rick Vigar and Farrington running to the line. Vigar ending up nicely in front there. And
a huge moment from Caperonis. Off into the wall in a big way. That car is going to be done. Absolutely destroyed that Gen 3 supercar, and Caperonis immediately jumped into pits. He was well off the racing line, but just a huge moment for Jim Caperonis. I'm not sure what's happened to fire him off the track like that. Certainly not what he would have had planned, I'm sure.
No, that looked like a bit of a momentary lapse in concentration, but that's okay. These things happen. It's a long night, and at the end of the day, you know, other than a very, very bent Gen 3, no real harm, no real foul.
Yeah, they can take another look at it, though, as you see Caperonis just very late on the brake, tries to shoot up inside, and what's happened, he's gotten in the grass with that left tyre, lost all the brakes, and straight into the wall, that engine popping almost immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just the excursion of the grass, all that it took, really.
Yeah, and it's quite an interesting braking zone there, Jared. There's a number of, you sort of drop down off the oval, and if you do get that wrong, you can just find yourself in a position where the car's just not stopping. And unfortunately for Jimmy, found himself in that position. And right as we were on board, well, certainly right as we were looking at it. So a bit of a shame there. Rick Vigar, though, he's back on the back of Farrington and will live to fight another day.
Yeah, very lucky, and look, not just luck, but certainly the skill involved there from Vigar to managed to keep that thing straight and not get taken into the wall with Caparozza. You see Vargs lock the brakes up in the background and just momentarily spears off to the left, taking Stewart for a little bit of a ride away from the apex. But they get rolling again, and all of a sudden this group's spacing back out. We'll jump back to the front. Wayne Walker and Jamie Dyke, it's starting to get closer still. Dyke has reeled it back into 7/10 and closing as they make their way up onto the banking one more time. We're on lap 21 of 24. This is getting closer and closer to the checkered flag. The question remains, can Jamie Dyke pick up any additional points? And in any case, both of these two quite happy to pick up the extra points here tonight in the absence of Matt Vanderkran.
Yeah, Jamie Dyke, I've noticed, has just been chipping away at this lead. He's been consistently lapping a couple of tenths faster than Wayne Walker, so not sure whether there's a difference in tyre condition or anything like that. But Jamie is certainly he's got the hammer down and he's chasing Wayne Walker down. He may just be catching up at the right time. So he's, we can see there he's still closing in. He's definitely in the tow. He's not at a point where he's going to get a huge benefit and come racing past, but he is continuing to chip away as we have a look at the lap times. And once again, Jamie Dyke taking a tenth out of Cavarona. So we've got 3 laps to go, and Jamie Dyke is, down to that sort of 4/10 marker and really took another bite out on the way into turn 1. So are we going to see a last lap battle as we now jump back to this little battle pack? Latham, Gamble, Varga and Stewart. It was only a lap ago that it was putting on a little bit of excitement here on the way into the International Horseshoe, and straight away again we come and focus on this group, and there is cars spread out too wide and jostling for position and going everywhere a little bit. We do see Gamble and Latham fighting really, really hard. We have seen Latham all over Scotty Gamble now for a while, doing everything he can to get past. Just can't quite get himself past and secure that position. He will know that the laps are winding down, and it's only for one more position, but there's no driver out there that settles particularly well for not grabbing another position. I think that John is going to push to keep making this or keep finding a way to make this pass. I do cast my eyes up in front. Jamie Dyke now inside 3/10. That battle is absolutely heating up. They are on the way out of the bus stop up in front, and they will be having a ding-dong battle for the last couple of laps. Mark Poynton sitting in a really interesting position, 8 seconds in front, nearly 3 seconds behind. As long as he just drives around for a couple of laps and doesn't do anything silly, he's probably got that spot sewn up. But first and second and fourth down to about 8th, definitely not resolved, Jared.
And here comes Jamie Dyke looking up the outside again, just wanting to put that pressure on Walker. Don't think he's going to get any of the move done here, but just again another opportunity to just show the nose, make sure that Walker is feeling the pressure, sees that green Fishy Motorsport car filling the mirror. He knows that Dyke has the pace here, and maybe it is just the 3 laps of difference in the tyres. 2 laps to go here, slightly under now. And Wayne Walker's going to have to summon every bit of anything that he's got left in the tank to hold Dyke at bay, because Dyke is absolutely within striking distance and will be looking for the opportunity here. David Coleman in the chat just saying that Dyke has been hard done by a teammate here. I can only assume that he means himself for not being here to support and provide the draft. I'm putting this on you, David Coleman.
That is absolutely shocking to say the least. Jared, you have entirely caught me off guard there, and I probably can't jump in and agree, to be honest.
Now, looking down the list, though, it is a noticeable absence of other fishy drivers here tonight. Jamie Dyke all on his own this evening, but it doesn't seem to be stopping his charge as he closes in once more on the back of Wayne Walker. It's all about the exit here from the bus stop. Let's see what Dyke has up the sleeve. And Wayne Walker just getting the better run for the moment. Jamie Dyke is sitting 4/10 back almost. He's going to have to do a little better than that on the next lap as we come back around to the start-finish line. We're going to see the white flag come out here as they make their way towards the line. So here it is, the last lap begins. Wayne Walker and Jamie Dyke. Jamie Dyke closing that gap right up once again on the way into turn 1. I think he's got to settle here. Got to be patient and just going to make sure he sticks absolutely to the back of the Accelerate Sim Racing car of Wayne Walker. It is very, very close here at the front end. We're keeping an eye on a couple of the other battles going on. Certainly a lot of drivers within a couple of tenths, but this is where it's all at right now as we make our way around Daytona one last time this evening. Jamie Dyke, what has he got left in reserve? Half a second back on Wayne Walker. He needs to close that up before they hit the banking.
I'm really surprised, Jared, to see Jamie take a wide line again through that turn one complex. I really thought that what we'd see there is Jamie just take the more traditional line and really be tucked onto the back of Wayne Walker because we've seen him a couple of laps now. He takes when he's got to run on into turn one, takes a slightly wider line and loses a bit. We see him here. He enters the banking 5.6 tenths. Well,
that's an interesting measure.
Yeah, that is a terrible measure.
5600
down. Goodness me, you can tell that it's 10 o'clock at night, Jared. That's all I'm going to say. But Jamie Dyke here, he does enter. He's immediately gaining as we head into the bus stop. He throws it in as late as he can. He's really looking to close this gap up. He's going to be trying to be hard on the throttle. 3.5 tenths here. He can get things going. He's going to be trying to bring in that last lap pass on the finish line. He is continuing to close the gap. I'm not sure that he can rein it back in from here, but he is doing everything that he possibly can. He's tucked into the slip. Can he get it done? He is continuing to close up, but I think that we're going to see here another Wayne Walker victory as these two gentlemen cross the line together. We immediately jump back and have a look at the battle for third. Mark Poynton passes on the way to the line. Does Scotty Gamble manage to get it back?
Got it, just
Scotty
barely.
Gamble gets it back by 16 one-thousandths of a second.
Nothing in it at all. Another close one here. Damon Fisher back in 8. Just giving it up to Dean Logsdale. A couple more close ones as well. Rick Bygar desperately trying to reel Farrington. He's not going to get there at the line, but only a couple of tenths in it as the rest of the field makes their way through to finish this one off. But Wayne Walker, an absolute cracker of a final lap. Jamie Dyke got so close, but in the end just couldn't quite close that final gap as he makes his way back around to the pits. It's what you got to love about speedway tracks. They are absolutely where you come to if you want to see some very, very close finishes, and we have seen plenty of that this evening. The last of the drivers making their way through now. Michael Power just about to finish up his race and across the line. Andrew Johnston right behind him, and that will be the end of our second race here this evening. Here comes Johnston to finish it off.
Yeah, fantastic to see guys out on track all the way down to 20th, continuing to run for home. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Jared. If you want to see close finish, tight racing, come to super speedways because they just have the ability to turn it on race after race after race.
Absolutely they do. We'll go to the results now, and this is what it looks like here at Daytona International Speedway. Race number 2, Wayne Walker taking the win by just shy of 0.2 of a second over Jamie Dyke. In the end, look, honestly, could have been closer in the end, but Walker just getting the better drive out of the bus stop for the last time. And then the gap to Scott Gamble, monstrous, 13 further seconds back, excuse me, in the field for the 9.5 Sim Sports racer, but he'll pick up third. Mark Poynton just barely missing it at the line, only a couple of hundredths in that. But Gamble gets across in fourth. Gamble across in third. Mark Poynton in fourth. Then Stephen Varga and John Latham ahead of Dean Logsdale and Damon Fisher. So some good points there for Team AJR this evening. Scott McCune coming home in ninth, and Michael Stewart rounding out the top 10 in the Ballon Stewart Foundation Racing entry. An interesting set of results there, Josh. Again, we're going to have to wait and see how it all kind of pans out, I suppose, from a championship perspective, because if I'm not mistaken, and I think you mentioned this earlier, this round can still count as a drop round. It's only really next round that won't be able to be dropped. But given how much change we've seen week to week already in the championship, looking at the start of this week, it'll be very, very interesting to see what does happen as we get into the finale next week at Interlagos.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we think about Matt Vanderkraan having a week off this week, Wayne Walker had a 0-point round as well. So really the difference is just going to come down to the worst other round that gets dropped and you know how many points are left after the rest of those races. You know, I wouldn't be surprised. Wayne Walker, fantastic results tonight. I wouldn't at all be surprised to see him still pull a little bit more, but it's certainly not like Matt Vanderkraan suddenly out of the picture because he's not here tonight.
No, absolutely not. And we'll see if we can grab Jamie Dyke into the room to have a chat to us. Jamie, have we got you at all? Jamie, are you with us?
Let's try that again. How are we?
There he is. Jamie, welcome to the booth, mate. Look, a close one in the end this evening, but not to be with the win. A phenomenal race, though, between yourself and Wayne all the way to the end, and a great one to watch. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed, to be honest. I probably second or third lap after the last stop. I think I gained a second on Wayne the previous lap, and then I got to slow down through the bus stop and had to give him a second back.
The bus stops the bus stop taketh away.
Yeah. So yeah, I had to give him a second because I had the slow down, and then I pretty much burnt the tyres chasing him down again. So yeah, if I hadn't got that slow down, I was probably in for a good shot.
A couple of fantastic results though tonight, Jamie, and it must be a bit of a breath of fresh air after a couple of really tough weeks.
Yeah, it's all right. Daytona's more about strategy and working out your numbers with the fuel and the tyres and who you're racing around you. So yeah, it just plays into my strengths, Daytona. But you know what, a P5 and a P2, I'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we head into the final round in Lagos next week, keen for a championship showdown there?
I don't think it's going to be much of a showdown, the amount of pace that Wayne's got at the moment. Like, I had him at Dunnington, but this is a whole new kettle of fish. I'm pretty happy Interlagos is the last round, though. It's a massive tyre track, which also you can fuel save quite a lot if it ends up being a fuel save race.
It'll be an interesting one for us to watch, absolutely. One more round to go. Before we let you go here tonight, Jamie, I've got a question in the chat for you that I was hoping could shed some light on. We wanted to know if the Dyke v Delaney incident here was used for inspiration for your drive tonight, and whether you can give us some context on that.
Oh. Who brought that up?
Oh, it would of course be a fishy teammate.
No, it's most likely Coleman.
Of course it was.
It wasn't an incident. It was a different league race in the Gen3 cars where the draft was a massive factor. I qualified on pole. I led the whole race, and I had a teammate passed me on the last lap around the banking with the draft. So there was no incident. I just felt a little bit hard done by.
Well, look, none of that tonight. Jamie, look, solid round for you. Some good points, I'm sure. Congrats on the P2 to finish it off this evening. We'll let you go and unwind a little and get ready for Interlagos next week, eh?
Thanks, boys. You have a good night.
Cheers, Jamie. Jamie Dyke taking P2 there, and we turn our attention now to position number 1. Wayne Walker taking the win here in race 2. Wayne, have we got you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Mate, if I'm not mistaken, Josh mentioned this earlier. I believe you told us last week that this was going to be your first time racing at Daytona, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. First time.
Well, that's a hell of a way to introduce yourself to the track. Tell us what you thought of the racing overall to start with.
Oh, like the racing was pretty close and like good racing, but yeah, this track, I don't know. I didn't really like it all that much, even though I went good on it. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, mate, you don't have to love a track to drive well, and that's certainly what you've delivered tonight. Got to ask, just how hard were you having to push to hold off Jamie there? He had a good couple of looks around the outside into turn one. We didn't think he was going to get it done, but I imagine you probably felt a fair bit of pressure for those last 5 or 6 laps.
Yeah, because I went in early to try and get the undercut. I knew Jamie, and I thought maybe Gamble or Poynton would have been there, but those last 5 or 6 laps, that was tough. Just trying not to make a mistake, trying to not leave the inside open or anything like that. It was tough. I thought he was going to get around the outside there on one lap on turn one, but I was able to just hold enough speed to clear him coming out of the corner. So yeah, that was probably one of the tougher races, I think.
Certainly a lot of fun to watch from our perspective. Some awesome points for you, and I don't know whether you've taken the time to look at the championship table, but some real shifts ahead of this round. The drop rounds playing in your favour and boosting you right up to the top. How are you feeling about championship chances with 1 round to go?
Oh, I'm feeling good, but the last round being a non-dropped round, if anything was to happen, I could quite easy lose that lead. So it's not there yet. So just try and keep it on the track and just finish the race pretty much.
Mate, we'll try not to put too much pressure on from our side. How's that? That's about all I can offer.
Yep.
Wayne, just interested to know if you've had a chance to cut any laps of Interlagos in a Gen 3 yet, and how you feel about a bit of a showdown there as you guys do wrap up the championship.
I haven't done any laps on Interlagos in iRacing or the Gen 3s, but I have raced on that track before in another sim, so I do like the track. But yeah, there are some differences between sims with the track. So yeah, I'll see what it's like, and yeah, hopefully I can get a good run there.
Well, all the very best next week. We'll let you go and get back and chat and celebrate with all the guys at Accelerate Sim Racing for a first night out here at Daytona, mate. You've done an absolutely fantastic job. Congratulations, and we can't wait to watch you and all your other championship combatants at Interlagos next week really duke it out and see who we're crowning as the champion come the end of the race.
Thank you.
Wayne Walker joining us there at P1 to finish his night, an absolute cracker. We'll take a look briefly at the points as we think they stand at the moment, and of course drop round still to be calculated. We've got a few bonus points here and there, but if this is anything to go by, then Wayne Walker should be feeling very, very comfortable out in front with 1 round to go here, Josh.
Yeah, I think that Matt Vanderkraan obviously scored no points tonight. I think that he's sitting much closer to Jamie Dyke, possibly even in between Jamie Dyke and Wayne Walker. Just trying to do some quick math in my head, remembering his other results. But yeah, I certainly, I wouldn't be surprised if he's still around that 100 points shy of Wayne Walker. Wayne had a pretty average round 2 and missed round 3, but really since he came back in round 4, he has come home strong and won a lot of races and placed really high. And the others, it's probably Wayne's to lose at this point next week. But as Wayne said, the biggest change next week, it is the only round in our championship here at ASR where there is no possibility to drop it. So, really it only takes a little bit of a bump, race 1, you're way off the back of the train, you don't really make any moves, and then you've got to fight back through again in race 2, and before you know it, you've lost 100 points to your rivals across the 2 races.
And we've just finished telling Wayne how we're not going to put the extra pressure on him, and here you go telling him it's his to lose, Josh. That's hard done by, but I'm sure Wayne Walker's got big shoulders.
I didn't say I wasn't putting any extra pressure on. They were your words. But, you know, it's going to be a fantastic race anyway, because in these style of races, absolutely anything can happen. But it's going to be a nice big lead. Jamie Dyke and Matt Vanderkruijm will have absolutely nothing to lose next week and can afford to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at it. And, you know, it's nothing to lose, all to gain for them.
Well, one more round separates us from the crowning of a Season 4 champion. The Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars Series will be wrapping up next week at Interlagos, so make sure you don't miss any of the action. Do hit that subscribe and get yourself a notification for the next stream. Same time next week, we'll be figuring out just who is walking away with the crown from Season 4. And of course, don't forget, if you are interested in jumping on board with the Endurance Championship, entries will be limited, so make sure you register your interest very, very early. Again, the Discord link has been posted in the chat here this evening, so jump on in, say hello to all the guys over at Alliance Sim Racing, and get your entry in for the Sandown 500 on June 15th. We've got to take a breather. We've got to get ourselves ready, prepared to call what could well be one of the biggest races of the season at Interlagos. Will Wayne Walker walk away with the championship, or do Jamie Dyke and Matt Vanderkruijm have a little bit left in the tank to make it at the end of this season? Stay tuned to find out. Don't miss any of the action here next week. On behalf of our major sponsors, Quantum Tint Solutions and AA West Automotive, with thanks to 24/7 Sim Services and Nicol Photography, this has been another Simple Racing Broadcasts coverage of the Alliance Sim Racing V8 Supercars Series. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you again next week for the final round. Until then, though, it is goodbye for now.